Let me make some adjustments here. Yeah, I like that a lot better. How's everybody doing this evening? Welcome to the Wednesday night hump. So far, we have made it to Wednesday, and it is sure a blessing to be here with all you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to show up. As usual, I will start out by saying that time is a precious thing, and spending a little bit of yours with me is really, really appreciated always. So let's just start out by saying that. And thanks, guys. Thank you so much. How is everybody this evening? Let me check the chat here. Make sure everything is good. Yeah, everything is looking lovely. Well, we have not. I always start out by talking about things that are going on here at Upstairs to the Right Music channel. Um, I bought a pedal. Maddie, how you doing, sir? It is a pleasure to have you here. Michael Watson here as well. How you doing? Welcome, guys. Um, I bought a pedal this week, guys, and actually, I will talk a little bit about that here coming up in a minute. Um, make myself comfortable here. Don't need these shoes. Um, Mr. Bogfoot, how you doing, sir? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Everybody's showing up. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it here at some point in the evening. Yeah, I bought a pedal, guys, and we shall see if it works out or not. It sounds like it may, but we'll talk about that. What else? Nothing else. Still have not started my guitar safari as of yet. I am in the middle of getting started. That hopefully this weekend I'll be able to start getting into that. But really, guys, just good to be here. To tell you the truth, it's just a good thing just to be here and to hang out. And I'm going to have to do a restart on this page over here because my. There we go. Now I can see the chat. I couldn't see the chat before. All right, there we go. Now we're in simpatico with each other. Yeah, guys. So not a lot of report, but I am going to share with you the pedal that I did buy and why I bought it. So we'll talk about that coming up here in a minute. Um, Tonight we have a discussion called I have a shoulder ache because I was working out, so I have a patch on my shoulder. I keep adjusting my shirt here because nobody wants to see that. Um, the Unbearable Lightness of Being a Guitarist in 2025 is the title of tonight's live stream. And we're going to talk about exactly that. We're going to get a little philosophical here, a little pragmatic, actually, to tell you the truth, and about the situation. And I always like to give solutions. I don't like to talk about things and not give solutions. So here, let me give a little bit of a solution as well to tonight's discussion. Um, Now, there's a book by Milan Kundera called The Unbearable Lightness of Being. And The Unbearable Lightness of Being is my favorite book. Um, I can say, I think the first time I was introduced to that book was in the early 90s. And there have been a lot of aspects of my life that actually, in an odd way, mirror that book. And I often think about it. I've had this series before when I lived in Singapore. If you go back and type in the unbearable lightness, being at that time I think it was being a composer. And tonight, although it's many years later, I'd like to pick up the series again and talk about the unbearable lightness of being a guitarist. So that's where that's coming from tonight. Let me catch up here. Lincoln says hello. Hey, how you doing? Top Hat was naughty boy, got deleted by Scott. Thank you, Scott. Um, yeah. Uh, this isn't doom and gloom. It's merely just a reflection. As you guys know, um, of course, I have to come up with scripts for these live streams. I don't want to just, wing it. I would like to talk about relevant topics, and at least in some kind of manner that it's helpful to the listener. I listen to a lot of YouTube channels about a lot of different things. As a matter of fact, tonight I was listening to um, one about the origins of yoga because I do yoga classes, and it was very interesting. Um, but I appreciate the fact that they're scripted out and the guys have points as they go through it. And so I try to do the same. So these scripts usually come to me when I'm out doing my watering my garden, actually. I just got a peach tree in. It's not going to bear any fruit this year, but I'm hoping next year it will. And I was actually putting that in a bigger pot and came up with the idea of what I'd like to touch upon tonight. So buckle in, folks, and let's get into it. No shortage of doom and gloom these days, Mike says. Yeah, man, dig that. You know, I don't let it bother me. I've been hearing the doom and gloom stuff since I was a kid. All the way back to how far back can I remember? Carter, when Jimmy Carter was president. So I've just learned how to filter it out and just kind of rock. If you know what I mean. Um, but it's good to have you guys here. So, interestingly enough, let's see here. All right. So, live music has never been more everywhere online, and yet nowhere in the real world is where I want to start this out tonight. And what do I mean by that? I mean that obviously there are fewer gigs, fewer venues, especially after the coup. And, that has become really obvious because a lot of the clubs, even in Japan, excuse me, guys, that I used to play at, a few of them have shut down. And I find that interesting because the live music scene in Japan, and interestingly enough here as well, is somewhat vibrant, but it declines every year. You can kind of feel it, just the venues dropping off, things of that nature. Everywhere online is obviously, of course, with the advent of YouTube, TikTok, etc., where you can see a lot of music, original music, a lot of people playing covers, a lot of bands, a lot of different stuff, but you can't have the live experience with them. It's just not the same thing. Frederick Rogers in the house. How you doing, sir? Good to have you here. Excuse me, guys. I got something. I thought I was all right in my throat there. Bar and pub gigs paid less than 20 years ago, but gear is gotten to be more expensive. Mostly. Actually, the pedal that I bought tonight, I'm going to talk about later tonight, falls under that category of being a reasonable deal. But still, for the cost of that pedal, would be probably what an average band would have to split amongst themselves, after a gig. And I find that to be amazing. Uh, I saw an article about this girl who went on OnlyFans like that she was 17 and she turned 18 1201. She opened up her OnlyFans account and she made $1 million in 3 hours. Now, number one, I shake my head at how this world has just deteriorated. Number two, it is amazing to me that, people are willing to throw money at this junk, but supporting a band, hell, any band, uh, in any kind of way, shape, or form, they just can't seem to do. And I just find that amazing. I really do. And so the gear gets more expensive, but the gigs pay less, which is kind of a cyclical with a cyclical firing squad. Because if your gig isn't paying you enough to get the gear, but you don't have enough money to get the gear to pay to play the gig, it gets into that kind of thing. And open mic nights are packed with talent, but almost no one gets paid. I had a friend of mine come up to me recently. He said, "Oh, we've got this open mic night. Why don't you come down and sing?" And I said, "Why?" There's no upside for me. If I go there and I suck, then that's just, a drag. If I go there and everybody claps and cheers and it's great, I'm still not getting paid for it. So, and I don't need my ego stroked. So there's just no upside to it. So open mic nights, you know, are not, they're not a solution. They're not even an equitable substitute, actually, in my opinion. Arian says hi. Hey, how you doing, Arian? Mike says streaming services ripping off artists on a massive scale is huge as well. Yeah. Hey, Ash, how you doing? Welcome to the chat, everybody. So good to have everybody here. Let me just always take a second to pause and thank you guys. Even if you're just checking in for a few seconds, just peeking in and seeing what we're all about here, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. But and DJs and solo acts with backing tracks are cheaper, so they get booked more. There is the Amsterdam Dance Week, ADW, that's going on here. And there's going to be hundreds of DJs from all over the world coming here, convening here to Amsterdam to hold these events. And there's nary a live musician in any of these things. I get invited to them, and sometimes I poke my head through the more interesting ones just for the experience, but not nary a live musician. And I'm not poking at DJs, but the rise of DJs is really uh, predicated upon the decline of money for bands. You know, and they get booked more. They're cheaper, so they get booked more. And festivals often demand pay to play or require bands, of course, to sell X amount of tickets. You sell, 1,000 tickets, you're doing their work. They're supposed to book the bands that are going to attract people, or at least they think that are good enough to attract people, and then go from there. But sadly enough, that's how it is. That's how it was in Japan a lot. I had to do some pay to play things myself, or I had to agree to just take the door receipts. The bar, of course, stayed with the house, and a glass of Coke was like $10. So you can imagine what whiskey would be. And so there's that, just this overall decline of things. Ben saying good evening. Good to see you, Mr. Allmark. Um, the gear trap. Talking about gear. Being a guitarist used to be financially manageable. Now it's often financially absurd. I touched upon this in the last live stream when I talked about how modding has become, sort of not something that you really want to get into because of the cost these days. How modding, even 10, 15 years ago, was a more attractive financial proposition than it is now. The cost of parts, mods, and repair has skyrocketed, especially here in Europe, due to VAT and import duties. Um, there is the first notification. I've been looking for this. I've been searching for it to come across, and I saw it on Reddit in the Japanese guitar forums that I forget the name of the Japanese shop in Tokyo is basically letting buyers in the U.S. know that they're going to be increasing their prices, and also shipping and VAT prices because of the tariffs are going to increase on guitars. So again, that trade, that flow of guitars between the United States and Japan is really going to drive up. It's going to dry up because, again, like I said, a local proposition, is going to sound better than importing something in. As cool as the made in Japan are, guitars are, as fantastic as the work is, that was the craftsmanship that was put in on it. And by the way, I have a friend in Japan. Another digression upon my digressions. I hope I can get my way back to the point. Is in Japan right now, filming a Deviser is having an exhibit in Matsumoto, and they're filming that for me. So I'll be able to share that with you guys coming up here. But that Japanese guitar route of going into the States is going to dry up. It's going to dry up without any question. And over here in Europe, however, that's the thing. I would say that the VATs and the cost and everything have been relatively stable for the last 6 months, and so there's that. I live in a college town, Michael says, and the live music is going on in several places every day and night. But even with all the opportunities for musicians, the pay is laughable. So it's more of a hobby. Yeah, then it gets into the age of the band, because the young cats, they can't afford it. It's usually the older guys who have a day job and they can go in and play in the evenings. And so that seems to be where that's going. Not to knock that, it's great for older guys like me to have a place to play at, but at the same time, it's not going to create the next whatever it is that's needed to invigorate the guitar world. I saw, just as another small digression, one guy was kind of talking about the demise of guitar and pop music. He said, well, shredders can't write tunes. And guitar solos don't put butts in the seats, and they don't sell records. And I thought about it, and I had to agree with him. I had to agree with that sentiment. That frankly, yeah, Yngwie Malmsteen and all these other guys are fantastic technical players, but Van Halen knew how to write a tune. And he incorporated it inside this thing that he could put butts in the seat with. So I kind of agree with that. But again, we're not even going to have the next guitar virtuoso if there's not an opportunity for that person to be able to express that, to learn how to develop stagecraft. I was so lucky growing up that I was on the stage, either acting as a child actor or performing. But I was always on a stage in front of large groups of people, and to the point where now it's still it would be a comfortable thing for me. But that's just not out there a lot. um, let's see. Beautiful story, says Squeeze 2. Thank you. I wonder how many guitarists are working off of Fiverr. Yeah, that's a great question. I'm sure there's a lot, certainly with lessons. Like, hey, you want a quick lesson? And so certainly there's guitar lessons, plenty to be had on that platform, but that's good. That's a good thing. A good point. Pay to play needs to go away, in my opinion. It is killing the up and coming bands. No new bands, no new music. Yeah, so it's like the circular firing squad, as I was saying, where honestly speaking, you don't have the ability to learn stagecraft if you never can make it to the stage. Exactly, Mike says. Mike, are you familiar with a company by the name of Zen Market? Yeah, Zen Market. They're like a middleman between Japan, Japanese online companies and overseas buyers for a fee, of course. I've personally never used them. I do believe it was Zen Market that put out that announcement today. I'm trying to remember, but I think it was Zen Market. As a matter of fact, I'm 95% sure. So yes, I know of them. I'm very familiar. I'm familiar with all of the cats that do that, but they've marked up their prices. I'm still, but again, I have to maneuver a certain way in order to, and again, like I said, we do not have the tariff issues with Japan over in Europe, of course, that are occurring with the United States and the rest of the world. I never use them, but I'm curious. Yeah, they're the ones that have increased their. Go on to Reddit, take a look at that. They sent out an announcement saying that, hey, basically, from now on, these made Japan guitars are going to get a lot more expensive. But hey, if you want to teach football, we'll build you a stadium and give you the players $1 million a year. Yeah, again, like I said, it's funny to me, you know. The music programs got cut in the schools before the sports programs. And that is because money from the colleges would flow into the high schools for certain players. There's a dog eat dog kind of thing there. And of course, the colleges and the majors, so there's money there to be had. The music thing, obviously not. Obviously not. I just watched a video called Heat Vision and Jack. It's like someone turned my dreams into a TV show. Heat Vision and Jack. I'm going to have to check that out. I'm going to have to check that out. I am going to have to check that out. Heat Vision and Jack. I will remember that. Well, I always play this back and remind myself, hey, Michael, watch Heat Vision and Jack. Scott recommended it. I check that out. I'm always looking for a new show. So there's that, guys. It's just it is what it is, as we say. Buying selling has become a minefield with shipping fees, VAT traps, and scammy marketplaces. But we saw that coming. You know, it's scammy out there. Even the Japanese sites are getting kind of scammy. You gotta be really super careful. Musicians aren't making money, but everyone else in the industry is. YouTubers, brands, flippers, they're the ones that are making money, not the flippers. Actually, flippers, I put that in apostrophes, see if that, put apostrophe right up next to it, caveat. But certainly, even the YouTubers are seeing a decline. The guitar YouTube market is, in terms of the commercials played, views and everything like that has been demonstrated on other people's YouTube channels that they've done research and found that it's declining. You can feel it if you have a guitar YouTube channel. You can feel it. Although for some reason, again, like I said, mine has been slowly increasing, but it's been increasing. I haven't had a down month. It's slow. It's snail's pace, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Um, and cultural relevance. Guitar is no longer the central voice of popular music. So it really doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Synths, loops, and AI generated stems dominate new music production. Analog is being quickly replaced with digital in a lot of ways. Even I myself, I'm trying to pull out and unfortunately, I am dead set on moving away from using Studio One as my recorder and get a hard bass one. I'm still dead set on that. That is something that I will definitely, when the right opportunity comes up and opportunity meets cash flow, I will make that happen. But I am moving more with my pedals into a digital domain. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Even guitar heroes are moving to YouTube or Instagram, not the radio or big tours. I am seeing so many actors, Hollywood actors, Hell, I saw Scott Bale from Happy Days started a YouTube channel this week. I am seeing everybody jumping over to YouTube. It's an amazing thing to see because these Hollywood actors and these people who in the beginning of YouTube. So I keep digging my eyes, guys. I got like 1,000 cats and dogs, as I told you, and I definitely have a hair in my eye. I should take a minute here and see if I can get it out. It's like every actor who said no way I would never do YouTube, now they're doing YouTube. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing to see. But the big guitarist as well. The rise of AI composition and the type beat culture leaves little room for real time players. To be honest with you, just little room for it. I should have gotten on the Roys and played footy. Is that a line from that? I'm looking up Heat Vision and Jack now. I'm curious, Scott. Okay, he's got it here. I'm going to hit that link, get back here to the chat. Thank you, Scott. What's going on here? Stop doing that. Okay. Figure skaters should be forced to use live performance music. Yeah. Sub Kendrick haters. Kind of, sort of, a little. I can't say that that's not an incorrect statement, but for reasons. You can make a huge pile of cash as a podcaster. You do not even need talent or intelligence. Yeah, the channels on YouTube that are growing are the ones that are talking about pop culture. Like this celebrity did this, or this guy slept with this woman, or this, that, or the other. And those are the ones that are climbing. You know, and because there's no rock musicians out there doing dirt, it's all the rappers and the actors. There's really nothing for us to report on. So we're not catching that wave at all. There's only so many times you want to hear about Kiss, back in '75 throwing a TV out of the Honolulu Hilton, window. It's not there. Lily Singh, stop yapping, old man. Drink your insure and go to bed. That was funny, Mr. Holmes. I like that one. Drink my insure. I don't even know what insure is. What is that? I better look it up because apparently, according to him, I'm going to need it. Funny stuff, guys. Funny stuff. That was funny, Steven. I'll give you that one. Play nice and you can come back in the chat. Yeah, man, dig that. It's just something. And the underground is strong. There's math rock, post punk, noise, ambient guitar scenes that are there. I, you know, I One of the most popular reverbs out there are ambient reverbs. Because that style of shoegaze music is really popular. People are still innovating. It's just not in the spotlight anymore. And in order to grow, it kind of needs to be. Kind of needs to be. Being a guitarist has always been more, however, than just about playing. But what happens when you don't play live, can't afford new gear, or feel unseen? It's not really a great feeling. And this cycle of buying gear, recording a demo, sharing online, no feedback, rinse and repeat is something that is not motivating. See, I think that an audience, that communal spirit, cavemen weren't like performing, in a cave up on the hill and beaming it down to other caves, on other hills. They were all in a communal fire around and they were all enjoying it in that kind of communal setting. Hopefully with very few blood sacrifices involved in between. But then again, that could have been the main feature. Anyway, I digress. point is that you need that communal spirit in order to really make music work, and we're just seeing that this is not happening. Addiction to tone, chasing nostalgia, trying to recreate the past because the present feels so empty. I think that's what it is in a lot of ways. One of the things about chasing tone I thought about when I wrote this is that people are actually trying to revive the past because the present feels so empty. There's a lot of YouTube videos out there that talk about how things feel different, how things feel emptier, how people feel emptier. Wow, this hair does not want to let go. It's probably Hoshi. Her hair gets in my eye sometimes, and it's like sticking my eye into a cactus. um, because you're addicted to nostalgia, as opposed to trying to find your own tone. That's why I don't learn a lot of cover songs. I had to do a lot of cover songs, of course, in Japan, but after I got out of that scene, I stopped learning other people's songs because it's not me. I have to play my own stuff to get my own sound. I'm not nostalgic. I am nostalgic about certain tones, but at the same time, I'm not writing anything with anybody's tone other than mine in mind. Guitar becomes a private experience, not a shared one. That's not good. And yet, you keep doing it because you are what you are, and so there's that. So there's that. My warehouse, Scott says, is between two movie production houses. One's a cop and dog show, the other is a sea monster thing. John Harnett has to listen to me cursing at stuff in the parking lot all day. That's funny. Maddie says, so many low IQ bot comments tonight. Come on, give me a challenge. I don't know if these guys are bots or not. The more insulting ones, I think, are real people. So the bots are the ones that are, trying to get you to say hello or read this or trying to trick you into saying things. You don't fall for those. But that Steve Holmes with the Ensure. I'm gonna have to look that up. What is Ensure, by the way? Is that like some kind of suppository or something? No, he said drink it. Yeah. Eddie Van Halen said, I will play my own stuff. If I fail, it will be playing my own stuff. Yeah, that's how I feel. If I fail, at least I did it my way, as the song goes. And so there's that, you know. I'm really going to try to get this dog hair out of my eye before I finish this, I swear. Even with all this, I still pick up the guitar. Picked up one today. Thought to myself, boy, I need to work on the frets on this again because I'm not happy with them. It still means something, but that meaning changes over time, sometimes daily. Sometimes daily. And so, really, guitar at this point in the game is what it means to you and what you can make out of it. If you can ride it to the top, although Prince said there's nothing there, if you can ride it to the top, good for you. If you just, recording stuff and putting it out there, then you're doing a great thing too. At least you're playing. And it always gets back to that, doesn't it? At least you're playing. I always make that point because I think that's the most salient point in all of these discussions. Keep playing. I'm guilty as hell when it comes to being nostalgic, Ben says, with guitars. Yeah, again, and of course, the manufacturers know that. They play on that nostalgia as well. But like I said, there's only so many times they can reissue Jimmy Page's guitars before it gets a little stale. And so we really have to kind of catch ourselves when we're getting nostalgia about tone or guitars or gear or whatever. And, I'm always interested in a new thing. I'm just not interested in the new overpriced thing. Lincoln says, writing my own album right now. If it's a pile of trash, well, yeah, man, it's my pile of trash. That's right. That's how I feel about my record. I'm working on a record myself right now. And if it's my garbage, it's my garbage to present. I hope you guys will support Lincoln and guys like me who and Scott and everybody who's putting out stuff. If you, we the answer to this is really starting out by supporting each other, and encouraging each other. You know, that's really where this starts. So I encourage you, Lincoln, to finish that. Kevin, my plan is to make songs, but name them like clickbait. Britney Spears hair transplant. Well, yeah, there's some AI songs out there that have some interesting titles you can find on YouTube that are pretty saucy. I listen to those and giggle because I like that sense. I have that kind of sense of humor, schoolboyish. But yeah, that's an idea. Everybody check out Lincoln's channel. Yes, sir. So I'm going to click on that link as well. I'm going to go over to Lincoln's channel. Yes, sir. Welcome. We're going to check that out. Everybody support Lincoln. Give him a like and subscribe. If you can do that real quick, take a moment to do that. I appreciate it. See, if we support each other, then this a movement can't be defeated as long as there's a group of people who are still active in it. And so guitar is going to be what it's going to be, but it really starts with picking one up and playing it at the end of the day. So there's that. Can I do this? I hope so. Is that showing up? Yeah. Let me move my microphone. Yeah, that helps. All right, guys. I bought this pedal today. Speaking of moving forward, this is made from a company called DK. It's the Master IE 550. And I didn't buy it today. I actually bought it on Monday. It actually should show up by tomorrow or Friday. I expect to have it. And why did I buy this pedal? You'll say to yourself, well, a couple of reasons. As you know, the Sonic Cake Master, Pocket Master, right now, guys, is probably one of the hottest selling items out there. There are a lot of companies that have a lot of different versions of that, but that's the one that's really selling. Maybe some of you guys out there have a Pocket Master as well. Um, I looked at it a couple of months ago when the usual YouTube hype machine got turned on. It seemed like everybody and their mom had a Pocket Master video. But I was present. It was one of those few exceptions of time where I was pleasantly surprised. I said, wow, for 50 bucks, 50 or 60 bucks, this thing is killer, actually. Um, After looking into it, there were a couple of things that turned me off of it. First of all, it comes in a plastic enclosure. None of my pedals, none of my pedals that I have come in plastic enclosures. I don't like plastic enclosure pedals. I know that's one of the reasons it's able to keep its price down, but that's kind of a no-go with me. I guess this is my impromptu review of the Pocket Master. The second thing that I didn't like about it, which is probably the first thing, is the fact that it has a 4-hour lithium battery. You can charge it two ways. You can USB-C charge it, or you can charge the lithium battery with a 4-hour time. I don't buy anything that has a lithium battery in it. That's a failure point. To find that battery or to send it back or to have that repaired, and can you have that repaired? That was a big try. I know that that's one of the great convenience factors of the Pocket Master. You would say, Mike, hey, that's one of the things, you don't have to plug it in, you can just put it in, yeah, but that's a failure point. And that kind of turned me off. So I said to myself, well, plastic, case and lithium battery. if they come out with something that has a metal case and still does USB C charging, but also has a 9 volt power option as well, that would be better for me. And I came across this. This is really, I'm going to be frank with you guys. If you're familiar with the Pocket Master, it's basically I swear that thing is about this big, and it's essentially what the Moore radar does, with the inclusion of what like the zoom effects does. So taking a zoom effects and marrying it to a Moore radar, and you basically have the Pocket Master, which makes it extreme with a built-in 10-second looper. You're able to load in NAM files, full capture files, with 5 slots, a 10-second looper on it, tuner, the whole nine. It's just a pretty nice package for 50, $60. But again, like I said, it wasn't attractive to me. I found this. This is from a company called DK. It is essentially the same thing as Pocket Master, and it costs $20 more. So it costs Pocket Master about $60. This is $79, $80. I paid 79 for it. It's essentially a Pocket Master. However, it comes in a metal enclosure. It USB-C charging as well as a 9 volt, so it doesn't have the lithium battery thing. And it also has an expression foot pedal switch on it as well. Same amount of everything else is exactly the same as a Pocket Master, with the exception of the sound quality of this is slightly better. The frequency response is a little bit better on this one. But other than that, exactly the same. And so I am trying, one of the things that I like about the Pocket Master in this is that it also acts as a interface as well with your computer. So you can record directly into your DAW from this device. You don't need a separate interface. I find for signal chain cleanliness, that's great because that cuts down on noise, less wires, less cables, and all that stuff going in between. That's always fantastic. And just all the way around, what it's going to end up doing is replacing, we'll see, my Moore that I've been using. Let's catch up here in the chat. I think we're caught up here. Looks like it. All right. So really, honestly speaking, really excited about this coming in. Do you think Hall effect sensor is the best mechanism to use on expression or wah-wah pedal? Yeah, I do. I know what you mean. Yes, I do. My wah pedal has that type of sensor. And what is that? Sorry, guys. I'm trying to catch up here in the chat, and I'm trying to think of 2 or 3 things at once. But I know what you're talking about, Scott. Mike Watson bought an Electro Harmonix Dreams 12 reverb, and when I got it was plastic, worst pedal I've ever had. Yeah, I just find that plastic pedals, it's just been my experience, have always been the really shitty pedals. It's a weird thing. And although the Pocket Master probably isn't exception, well, it obviously is an exception because it's a pretty great pedal, but again, that's a turnoff for me. That's why I even at that price, I just said no. Then I saw this and said yes, because metal enclosure, even has an expression pedal, but it's essentially the exact, and it runs off. I know I said I hate these. You can run it independently. You don't have to run it, but you can run the software on your iPhone. I've already downloaded the software for it. Seems to work, so I can control it on my iPhone if I want to. I won't do that a lot, but just as a standalone unit, that I'm going to put my Klon in front of it with my Fender buffer in front of the Klon. So it's going to be the Fender buffer, the Klon, and then this pedal. And that's going to be my pedal rig because, quite frankly, that's about all you need. This thing takes, I've heard demos of this. This is again the same thing as the Pocket Master. So I've heard demos of the Pocket Master. It takes pedals really well. And so I decided to, and then for that price, $79 for this, I said that's kind of a no-brainer. And if I don't like it, I can of course return it. The plastic Dan Electro pedals, I had quite a few Dan Electro pedals and I ended up selling them because they were plastic. The ones after the named after food from the light 90s held up well over time. Probably a type of plastic to have. My brother has the hot dog one. Yeah, I believe that. Probably the quality of everything was better then, because the manufacturing costs were cheaper. I miss my old Dan Electro pedals as much as the guitar itself. I miss my Dan Electro guitar. I really regret selling that. To be honest with you, I had a beauty. I had a beauty too. Welcome, by the way, Mountaintop. How you doing? DJ Vex. I remix music with antiquated software. I'm old school. Yeah, you're lucky. My software company, Studio Personas, they update this thing every 3 seconds. And if you don't do the upgrade, then they won't support the older version. So it sucks. That's why I want to get away from it. But this is, quite a thing. And so I can't wait for it to come in. We will review it, of course, when it does. But I'm excited about this. And again, it frees up. I can sell the mover, to be frank with you. I know some people who are actually putting this in front of a mower and just using this or the Pocket Master just as an effects box, which I think is kind of a waste because if you can load NAM files in, which I've selected my NAM files, my 5 favorite ones, two based on a Mesa Boogie Mark 5, Mark 4, Mark 5, and a Fender and a Marshall, because there's 5 slots. So I will load those in when it shows up, and I can't load NAM files in the Moore radar. So just that alone makes the Moore radar now on my rig obsolete. And now I've gone down from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pedals. It'll take me down to 3 pedals, and that'll be really all I need. Very nice portable rig too, as well, actually. Glad to meet you. Glad to meet you too, sir. Thank you so much for taking time to show up. Again, just pausing quickly, guys, and saying thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Each and every one of you is a blessing to me to have showing up here on the Wednesday night hump. I know wherever you're in the morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever I find you at, I just want to say thank you. I thought of the pals were painted metal chassis. Yeah, there may be something to that. That happened too. All the smartest cats in music are going back to recording on tape. I think Korn's new one is analog. Yeah, yeah. It has a sound to it. Wow, that's crazy. It's not a cheap pedal either. Nope. Congratulations on your new pedal, Mike, Ben says. Can't wait to hear the lowdown. Yeah, I can't wait to either. Well, basically, again, I'm not even going to kid you. It's a souped up version of a Pocket Master. It's a Pocket Master with a metal enclosure and an expression pedal built in. So, not a lot there, but, different. So, I'm just impressed with the Pocket Master. I think that design wise, this works better for me. DJ Beck says, I feel all warm and fuzzy. That's good. I like to get the warm and fuzzies when I can. Do you use an EQ compressor or a noise gate on your pedal board? I certainly use a compressor. An EQ digitally now because that's built into the Moore radar. And I think the most important pedal actually is the Fender level set buffer. I can't live without that pedal. That really is an improvement to the tone across the board, whether you're running through analog or digital. Noise gate, no. I was running noise gates for a while. Now I use software-based noise gates when I'm recording because all the hardware ones, it was really cutting off my sustain, and so I've learned a few workarounds. So I'm excited about that. Like I've said, I will certainly be using this pedal in the level set buffer and this, and that will be my rig. I'll get my rig. I had my rig used to be like this. Now I've got it down to this. And to get it down to three pedals, quite frankly, is a joy because it frees up space here. And it's certainly a lot easier thing to record with. And yeah, either I'm going to use my Klon copy or I'm going to use, because it's a small half pedal like the Moore Radar, that Little Heat pedal. That's a screaming pedal. I mean, the Little Heat would work just as well. Either the Klon or the Little Heat and the Fender level set buffer. That's going to be my pedal board. Little Heat, I'll be frank with you. The Little Heat, I'm surprised they didn't put that in mass production. That thing is a screaming little pedal. It doesn't take much space either. I'll swap between the two and see which one I like better. That's a good name for a pedal, the Warm and Fuzzy. Yeah. What music have you done? Are you working on anything right now? Yeah, DJ Vax. Please, Scott, if you could be kind enough to put up the link to my Asanoki page on Bandcamp so that DJ and other folks can go over there and listen to those albums. If you want to support this channel, listen to the music. If you like one of those tracks, feel free to buy it or buy both of the albums. I'm coming out with a third album. I'm working on it as we speak, but please check that out. Scott says the worst thing is when you have audio problems and look down at 17 pedals. Yeah, daisy chained together. Yeah, see that, and again, noise issues as well. We used to record directly into the board. And that was the cleanest way to record back in the day. But this would be kind of the software, the equivalent hardware equivalent of that. Yes, I would check it out. Thank you, DJ. I appreciate it if you do. I think you'll like it. It's an eclectic mix of rock and pop, is what I do. You can also go on Spotify and look up Mike McWilliams, and there will be the other 5 albums. I have 7 albums in total, 5 on Spotify and 2 on Bandcamp, and an 8th I'm working on right now. Check it out. Appreciate it. So yeah, I'm kind of digging this. This should be in Friday. I'm hoping. We shall see. But it is the first new bit of gear I've bought in a minute, and cool. I do trance and chill. I like to check it out. If you got a link, put it up here so that we can all check it out, DJ. We would all like to hear it. I like trance and chill music. I love trance and chill music. To be frank with you, of electronica, that's my favorite genre. It is my favorite. Especially being here in Amsterdam because that's what you hear in a lot of cafes and pubs. Really, to tell you the truth. Especially the coffee shops, man. I don't go in there because it'll lull you to sleep. It'll be like da 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 da, and you'll find yourself going to sleep. But it's good chill music. Check it out, guys. Scott's got it up there. Thank you, Scott. Scott's the man. Everybody thanks Scott for putting that up. Let's hit that link as well. We'll do it right now live so that I don't forget. Yep. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're gonna go over and check that out. Or rather, should I say yes, ma'am here? Well, either way, I want to check it out. It's looking good. We are definitely all going to check. Everybody hit that subscribe button, like button over on DJ Vex's channel. Support. We support our friends here at the Upstairs to the Right channel, and certainly these two are good friends to have here this evening. Yeah. Sweet. Yeah, we're gonna do that. Okay, guys. I want to switch gears here. I have a fortune cookie here. Boy, I love fortune cookies. My favorite cookie. Good stuff. Let's see what our fortune is. Don't mess with Scott and Maddie, you scumbag trolls. No, actually, it says fame, riches, and love are yours in the making. Now, I never found a negative, fortune cookie, by the way. They're always positive. So why do I bring out the fortune cookies? Well, because we're going to talk about the fortunes of certain musicians back in the 60s. Yes, it's time again for us to spend a little bit of time talking about the Laurel Canyon scene back in the 1960s. And tonight, it's going to be an ugly one. I had contemplated about doing, because I like this segment. For those of you who are new, we're reading from a book this summer, just this summer only. It's based on, okay, let me back up. In Japan, I lived in Japan for 18 years. During the summertime, when it got really hot, they would tell scary ghost stories in order to create the chills or goosebumps to cool you down. And I thought it would be kind of fun for me to get into the more, well, we don't do ghost stories here per se, although I have a few, but that's for another time. But get into the more spookier aspects of the music business. And I thought that I would tell you, I really do like the fortune. I've been eating fortune cookies since I was a kid. And I never get tired of this. Good stuff. We're going to talk about the spookiness of the Laurel Canyon scene. And we talk about that every live stream, not every live stream, but towards the end of the summer. We're going to cover that. And tonight is no different. So this may not be for everybody tonight. I will put that warning up ahead. Yeah, it's actually so bad that I actually have to put a disclaimer up tonight. But I think that it's important that we talk about these things because I love the process of making music. I hate the business of it. I hate the business of it because the business of it is nothing positive. It's all destructive. It's take. If you really think about the music business, it's a taking business. It's not a giving business. It's funny because, music is supposed to be a giving thing, but it's actually a taking business. It's a mirror of itself. So let's talk about that a little bit. Let's get into this a little bit. Let me catch up here in the chat. We got here, buddy, can we design your thumbnails? Now I've got a lovely program that does that with me. Right after you watch Heat, Vision, and yeah, we'll watch that. Sir, can we design your thumbnails? Do you love my teeth? Crumbly cookies. Are you an independent artist? Yeah, but I'm registered with BMI. I'm a BMI artist. I've been a BMI artist since the 90s. All right. So let's go back to the 1960s and let's understand that as opposed to today on television, anything goes. You know, I saw a singer who's like one of the most popular singers now. I won't say her name, but she was on stage performing with another very popular artist, and she had her ass hanging out. She was literally wearing just like a G string. And I said to myself, I do not recall even Madonna, you know, at her, most scandalous, although she had that book, but that's a separate issue, on stage dressed like this. And again, you know, it amazes me the depravity of the music business. But unless you think that it's a new thing, let me delve in a little bit tonight into some of the darker aspects of the Laurel Canyon scene. Now, we ended up last time talking about the Mamas and the Papas, John Phillips, Mama Cass, and Michelle Phillips. And we talked about how these guys, they're super clean, folksy. Ed Sutherland, they're not even Dick Cavett show persona was a complete BS. These guys behind the scenes, and I do mean each and every one of the members of the Mamas and Papas, were some really depraved individuals. And I think we focus on John Phillips a lot, but let's give some of the ladies in the group a little bit of honor, a little bit of due to them. In reading a little bit about a boot, Canadians would enjoy that one. Reading a little bit about what Mama Cass was up to. Now, Mama Cass had a pretty nice house up in Laurel Canyon. Actually, adjacent to it, right across the street where the Manson murders occurred. Now, that's key. I want you to remember that Mama Cass had a house across the street from the house where the Manson murders occurred, up on Cedar Drive. And this was a place where a lot of musicians would show up, and a lot of drug dealers would show up, and it's a well-known fact that you go to Mama Cass's house and get high and jam. And that's kind of what her place was known as. And a regular at Mama Cass's place was a guy by the name of Charlie Manson, which kind of gives you an idea why the house across the street got hit, by the way. According to Ed Sanders, it was at Cass's home that Charlie first met her neighbor, coffee heiress Abigail Folger. The house, of course, that Abigail Folger that it occurred at, who helped finance Kenneth Anger's films. Now, I was trying to remember this filmmaker in the last live stream, Kenneth Anger, because I was talking about the Church of Satan. And Kenneth Anger's films, which were scored by the Rolling Stones, by the way, and some of his films were supposed to star Mick Jagger, but it ended up starring one of the guys who ended up being involved in the Manson murders. Interesting enough, but they were occult films. They were occult films. They were esoteric films. You can look up Keith Anger's films if you want to. The whole history of the guy, it was all occultism. So now we introduce the military industrial complex, the mob, and that magical third, spoke of Luciferianism surrounding the Laurel Canyon scene. And Abigail Folger financing Luciferian director Kenneth Anger's films. And she ends up being killed by Manson, who's having, coffee, tea, and weed across the street at Mama Cass Elliott's house. You understand how twisted? If this wasn't, if somebody said this is made up, this is bullshit, it can't be because it sounds so outlandish, but it is all true. It's all true. So, um, the rather notorious Process Church of the Final Judgment also starts to show its head in this situation. And you say to yourself, well, what the heck is the Process Church of the Final Judgment? This was yet another Luciferian church that came out of the UK that, interestingly enough, I know this is going to sound like a weird connection, but Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton, and those guys, they were associated with the Process Church. Mama Cass Elliot, as well as Charles Manson, who got the idea for his organizational structure from the Process Church. So much so that the Process Church sent out some members to go talk to Manson and to see, if it was indeed true that he was basing his organization on theirs. And they let him slide. They let it go. They considered the Manson family to be an associate family to the Process Church. So this is dangerous company that the mamas and the papas were hanging out with. For a band that had a song about being safe and warm, if I was in LA, the members of the Mamas and the Papas really kept in dangerous company in the City of Angels. They really did. Now, on the Process Church, it started its operations in the 1960s. It was an occult, satanic organization. The Manson family took some of their philosophical ideas from the Process Church, as it was later better known by non-processians. The church started with Robert the Grimstone. That's a great name. Robert the Grimstone. Great name for a guy to start something like this. And Marianne. Marianne, again, another interesting thing there. We won't get into that. Obviously, these weren't these people's real names. And this was a splinter group from Scientology. Now, Scientology was a splinter group from Crowley, Aleister Crowley, the Golden Temple. Okay? So, Golden Temple, Scientology, Process Church, and it's obviously with its root, and then of course, with Crowley, his Golden Dawn was completely came out of the Theosophical Society with Bailey and all those people, those fine folks, all Luciferian societies. A man is free to believe what he wants. And I always say to people, well, you may not believe in this, but there's some people who sure do, and you better take them seriously. So that is the connection. I'll read here an advert from a document that they put out in 1960. 1970, this is dated 1970. Tuesday, 7 p.m., 1973. The process is in need of a strong, dedicated communist to take on all comers in verbal free-for-all evenings with members of the public. We already have a fascist anarchist, and representatives of various other extremist groups. But a real tough communist with all the answers, serious hard to come by. If you fit the bill, please apply to Christopher D. Peter. Now he's changed his name. It's always, before it was De Grimstone, now it's De Peter. Again, another occultic tie-in name there. The process address, which is plastered all over this magazine. So these guys, were, they were interesting. You know, this is going back into the 70s. This is going back into the 70s. Lucifer Rising was his most famous film. That's right, Mike. Very good. Thank you for reminding me. I couldn't remember the title of that film for the life of me. Not that I want to think about it. But yes, that was his most popular film. I want to hear this book narrated by Robert Stack. I've been down for hearing some Crowley stories. Yeah, you know, and you say to yourself, well, how does Scientology tie into Crowley, which tie into philosophy? Well, Crowley, along with JPL, Jack Parsons, the Jack Parsons Laboratory, JPL Lab. They say it means Jet Propulsion Laboratory, but it actually means Jack Parsons Laboratory. Jack Parsons worked on the Manhattan Project, by the way. Just tell you the level of a scientist. He was an advanced rocketeer. And he and Scientology leader, what's his name? Can't think of his name. L. Ron Hubbard. They went out in the desert to do a ritual to bring forth the spirit of the Antichrist. Not my words, their words. What they said they did. And after that, not long after that, they kind of split ways, had a little disagreement, because Parsons was a pure theosophist, and L. Ron Hubbard wanted to start his own religion. But but Scientology, just so you know, guys, Scientology is based on Luciferianism. Just so you know that. Its roots are in that. So when you see Tom Cruise and all those other cats jumping up and down on couches, you know where they come from and what they're all about. Jimmy Page was big into Crowley. Yes, Jimmy Page was so into Crowley that he bought Crowley's house. And owned it for a while, as well as his library collection. And he was, I'm sorry guys, I'm eating this because it's so rude, but this is so good. He was deeply, all those guys were. A Rainbow in the Ronnie James Dio, A Rainbow in the Dark. Listen to that song. Great tune, great hook. Great hook. But listen to that and what he's talking about. And understand where these guys were coming from. Just look up, type Ronnie James Dio, Rainbow in the Dark, lyrics, and read that. Okay? So Satanists, murderers, and sex creeps. Fun bunch of people. Yeah. This is Laurel Canyon. This is the Mamas and the Papas. This is Joni Mitchell. This is Frank Zappa. This is The Doors. This is Buffalo Springfield. Shall I go on? That came out of that scene. And this is the scene that these guys were in. And the Monkees. Let's not forget the Monkees. hey, we're the Monkees. That little scene in the opening where they're all dressed up in the little devil suits with the pitchforks running up the beach. That I think that was more true to life than folks would really know. I'm just saying. Everybody knew, and everybody was in these scenes, and everybody knew what these scenes were about. And if you were in that scene, you were in it one way or the other. You were either in it for the drugs, the sex, or the occasional animal sacrifice. Elaborate on Zappa, please. Well, Zappa was the ringmaster of the Laurel Canyon scene. Um, Frank Zappa, which you along with a couple of other individuals had strong military backgrounds through their parents, and they were strict authoritarians. They were not the love, peace, and hippie guys that you would think that they were. They were actually very military, like some people would describe them in the way that they were. Their their real persona was quite the opposite of what their public persona was, and he is no different. Doesn't take away from the fact he was a musical genius. Just happened to work out that way. Doesn't take away from the fact that, but that doesn't also take away from the fact that he was a ringmaster of this Laurel Canyon circus, and there's no way that he wasn't involved in some way, indirectly or directly, to all of these things. So there's that. Good, bad, or indifferent. Again, not here to judge. Not my place to judge. A man can believe, he wants to believe in the devil, fair enough. That's fair cause. But, it just seems odd to me that all of the music that came out of Laurel Canyon has this really, really dark background to it. Really dark. Mega dark. Super dark. Wasn't there an infamous California Devil Party with people in costumes that got raided in the early 2000s with lots of famous? Yeah, yes, yes. That's that again. That was I think the genesis of that started at Mama Cass's house because that was the scene. And Joni Mitchell writes about the scene. What is that song off these where she's talking about being at one of these parties, people's parties. Look at the lyrics that she's at David Cosby's house and she's talking about these scenes in that. She's actually in that song lyrically talking about one of these scenes. There is no heaven without a hell. Well, um, yes, quite right. The yin and the yang. The as above as so shall below. In any case, guys, so dark stuff, guys. And I don't even want to touch on the processor because they make the Manson family look like, friggin' Mr. Rogers because they were involved in a lot of murders and a lot of Laurel Canyon murders. But I want to introduce them into the mix tonight because we haven't touched upon them yet. We talked about the military-industrial complex. We've talked about gangsters. Now we're going to touch upon some of the more esoteric things that were occurring up there. So keep the process church in the back of your mind because as we go through this story going forward over the next few months, you're going to see clearly that there was a lot of things going on there. A lot of things. Yeah, People's Parties. Check that out. You think of the weird Northern California thing that's held in the Redwood Forest. No. He's not talking about. He's not talking about that. That is a different thing altogether. No, he's talking about something that happened in L.A. I'm familiar with it, and actually, interestingly enough, the thing up there was Bohemian Grove. He's not talking about Bohemian Grove. Bohemian Grove is a place where you go to worship Moloch. They have the god Moloch, which is a big wooden owl, by the way, that they go up there and worship. But that's a separate thing. That's a separate thing. No, they're two different things in two different locations now. Unfortunately. So keep that in mind, guys, as we go forward. I want to introduce to you tonight the Process Church because they're going to come up big in the story. The Manson connections to these musicians, you know, Mama Cass and John Phillips were supposed to testify at the Manson trial, but that never happened as character witnesses for Manson. No, no lie. You know. So keep all this in mind. Of course, it helps to have an interest, an understanding of esoteric things, but then don't go too deep into that stuff, guys, unless you have strong um, spiritual kind of shielding. We'll put it that way. But certainly, it is an aspect of this that we have to talk about. People want to shy away from this stuff. We don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about what recording board. And that's certainly an interesting thing too. A recording board these guys were recording too. But again, that may play into sonic nostalgia and may not be worthwhile. What's worthwhile is saying that these guys were freaks back in the day, and that freakery goes forward into today. Probably worse. And this stuff was pretty bad. So there's that. Hey Mustafa, how you doing, man? Good to have you here. Uh, Huxley was Orwell's mentor and part of the Fabian Society. Yes, there's many societies. You have the Royal Society, the Fabian Society, and each one of these societies have a different role. Again, the Royal Society there, we talked about Francis Bacon, and we talked about that once. But yeah, all right, guys, that's it for me. I want to say thank you so much for tuning into tonight's live stream, The Unbearable Lightness of Being a Guitarist in 2025. We touched upon that as well as got into the Laurel Canyon discussion tonight as well. Pretty good one. A lot of cool people showing up here. Check out all the links of all the people that we have at DJ Vex, Lincoln, and Heat Vision, all of that, and Heat Vision, and I got to check out this Heat Vision thing. Check out these links, guys. Support this channel by going to my link over on Bandcamp and buying a song, buying an album if you feel like it. And I would greatly appreciate that. Until the next one, everybody, please take care. I'll see you later. Bye bye.